Morning, Dan and Amy. So Attorney General Merrick Garland was before a House Oversight Committee yesterday, Mr. Sardonicus's House Oversight Committee. That's Jerry Nadler there. And a number of topics covered: his potential alleged conflict of interest with respect to school curriculum, given his son-in-law's business of selling CRT, critical race theory curriculum. Back and forth with Representative Mike Johnson from California on that. Back and forth with Thomas Massey from Kentucky on whether or not there were federal agitators in the crowd, federal law enforcement acting as agitators in the crowd on January 6th. And Garland wouldn't answer the question, citing the oft-cited under a pending investigation, can't comment. But the real issue he was before the committee to address was his using his office to advance the position of the National Association of School Boards that parents who are vocal at school board meetings, even angry at school board meetings, somehow rise to the level of a domestic terrorist threat. This was part of the exchange with Representative Chip Roy from Texas. Chip Roy going right to the Loudoun County school case, specifically the cover-up of multiple alleged sexual assaults. This is how that went.
Attorney General Garland, do you know where Broad Run High School is? Do you know where Broad Run High School is? It's in Ashburn, Virginia, in Loudoun County, Virginia. Do you know why I care? Because I'm a graduate of Loudoun Valley High School. Despite my family having Texas roots back to the 1850s, I grew up in Loudoun. It was my home. And also I care because on October 6th, a mere 15 days ago, inside Broad Run High School in Loudoun County, Virginia, a young girl was sexually assaulted. Attorney General Garland, are you aware that because Loudoun County prosecutors confirmed that the boy who assaulted this young girl in Broad Run High School is the same boy who wore a skirt and went into a girl's bathroom, sodomized and raped a 14-year-old girl in a different Loudoun County high school on May 28th? Are you aware of those facts? The boy was, are you aware firmly, are you aware further that the boy was arrested and charged for the first assault in July but released from juvenile detention?
This sounds like a state case, and I'm not familiar with it. I'm sorry.
Interesting. That sounds like a state case, but parents speaking at school board meetings sounds like a federal case to Merrick Garland. That should have been Chip Roy's pushback. But he did raise the issue of Scott Smith, the father of the second girl who was sexually assaulted. And
he's the poster boy for all this.
Well, he was, according to the National Association of School Boards, and this is that exchange.
Believe that a father attending a meeting, exercising his First Amendment rights, and yes, getting angry about whatever lies are being told about his daughter being raped in the school he sent her to be educated in, that this is domestic terrorism. Yes or no?
No, I do not think that parents getting angry at school boards for whatever reason constitute domestic terrorism. It's not even a close question.
Mm-hmm. It's not even a close question. Then it's still left unanswered, at least to my satisfaction, why there was the need for DOJ to, quote, open up lines of communication, direct the FBI to do so with respect to local school boards if something as graphic and disgusting as what happened to those girls in Loudoun County, the raping of two girls in Loudoun County, if that is something that can be handled by state and local authorities. Why do parents need to be handled by the feds? For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Ashley Jacobs. She's the executive director of an organization that seeks to promote diversity of thought in K-12 education. The organization is Parents United, ParentsUnited's.org. She joins us now. Ashley, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Did Merrick Garland's statement there that he doesn't believe angry parents at school board meetings are domestic terrorists and he doesn't think it's a close call, does that satisfy you that G-men won't be coming after parents who say the wrong thing at a school board meeting?
I think the bigger issue is that parents are finally paying attention and they're engaged. And the fact that the response was so strong from the federal government shows that parents are over the correct target. For the first time, I think in a long time, people are taking notice that our systems are failing. Parents have lost their trust in education. And it was really clear this year for most of them who were, watching their kids over Zoom not get educated the way they thought. So to be honest, all of this is just a smokescreen if you really drill down, because parents should be involved in their kids' education. I think that for the first time, they're understanding the stakes are high, and this is making some people really uncomfortable, probably particularly the teachers' unions, right, who are the ones who asked for this order. So the good news is, we got a little bit of pushback, and now parents are going to exert their rights to stick up for their kids, which is what they're supposed to do.
So you're saying that national teachers unions or local teacher unions push for this, for parents to be treated as domestic terrorists?
I'm not sure exactly I would say that, but there was a letter that was sort of the impetus for this whole thing that was given. And if you trace the details, the ordinance or the law or whatever this was that Merrick Garland handed down was in response to a letter that was given to them because I think there were some people on the school board who were feeling uncomfortable that parents were coming to the school boards and exercising their First Amendment rights. Certainly no one ever thinks that violence is the way to go. We all know that. But, who's to say what kind of speech is violence, right? This is the whole debate the country's having right now. Some things might make you feel unsafe. If I say a word that you don't like, you could see how this could be twisted. So the point is they're pushing back. Teacher unions don't like it. And here you are.
No, that's right. And this is in the Biden, there's email trail that makes it clear the Biden administration knew very well about this. And yes, of course, this is national and local, national teachers unions versus local teachers unions. What's the difference? It's all part of the same supply chain, if you will. And so the Department of Justice doing the bidding of this agglomeration of essentially left-wing activists. But here's the interesting thing to me is what it takes, how much it needs to be put between people's eyes to get it. You mentioned parents being woken up, if you will, to what's going on in the classroom because of the Zoom classes during the lockdowns. And now, all this like speeches, violence, these protestations on college campuses, stories that have been told anecdotally for decades. Oh, that was kids being kids at the college campus that I'm sent my kid to, where I'm paying $60,000 a year to have them indoctrinated into anti-American claptrap. But that's just kids being kids. All of a sudden, when you're getting it repeated back to you as a parent advocating for their kid at a grammar school level by your duly elected school board member, oh, now it's real for these parents. And the one hand, I'm a little frustrated. On the other hand, I agree that it's great that parents are getting engaged, and that the response, a la Harry Jackson, I think that's his name, the former naval officer in Fairfax County, is to wear a T-shirt calling himself a domestic terrorist. And this whole episode is just encouraging parents to be more strident in standing up for their First Amendment rights and in making their opinions known about the course direction and correction as needed of their schools.
Yes, you're right. And we started Parents Unite because we were concerned about the direction of K through 12. And you mentioned this college situation. All of that has trickled down to K through 12. There's a lack of diversity of thought. Kids aren't able to challenge popular opinions. And partly they're looking at their parents who are feeling stifled and not able to challenge popular opinions. Schools are telling kids what to think, not how to think. This lack of independent thinking is happening everywhere. It used to be a virtue. And I think a lot of the reason that parents are slow to speak up is because they're scared, right? Cancel culture is real for a lot of people. You don't want to put your kid in a weird position. You don't want to risk getting a bad grade from a teacher. You don't want to risk not getting into the college of your choice. So you sort of go along with the system. But I think people do reach a breaking point. And when you see that not only are kids not learning, but they're actually, there's learning loss that happened over the year, you start to roll your eyes and say, okay, I can't stay silent anymore because the cost is too high and we need to do something now.
What is the, there's a number of groups that have sprung up and existing groups that provide, legal representation and so forth. So give us the ParentsUnite.org sort of playbook, mission statement, and the support it can give parents at school districts around the country who maybe are not as well organized as they are in Loudoun or Fairfax counties.
So our mission is to ensure that K through 12 independent schools promote a culture that values and prioritizes true diversity of thought, freedom of discourse, and self-expression. We started in New England and focused on the elite private schools because we thought that in many ways they serve as a beacon, and everyone seems to think that they follow best practices, but it turns out that they don't. And that's the irony. Because if you think about the public school response to a lot of these parents is, well, if you don't like it here, go to a private school, go somewhere else. Well, it turns out it's happening everywhere. And so we're concerned about this trend. And so we believe that a lot of this is coming from the accreditation agencies, right? They are responsible for shaping the educational landscape for the independent schools. They provide the professional development, the conferences, the speakers, the teacher training, and all the valuable resources to the school. So you could see that their structure doesn't allow a lot of accountability or oversight. Nobody's keeping them in check. They're promoting a very one-dimensional, one-sided culture. They're very heavy on the DEI right now, and that is coming at the expense of a lot of other important things that they could be providing for schools. So it's a struggle at all schools, but I think that we're seeing that nobody's really paying attention to the people that are shaping the landscape. And so that was our initial point, was that we're going to talk to the National Association for Independent Schools and see if we can work with them to create spaces in schools that maybe focus on free speech. There's a wonderful school in outside of Chicago, New Trier, and they worked to pass a Chicago statement, which is a free speech statement. And every school can do it differently. But our thought was that if we could get schools and parents in schools to work together to do something really positive and put a stake in the ground and say, what kind of a school are we? Who do we want to be? This is a good exercise because everybody then knows what the expectations are. Kids then know that they are supported if they want to speak up. Teachers also know. It turns out that it's a little harder to do than we thought. We've been met with some resistance because the accreditors think that they're doing a great job in this realm. They aren't. And so it's a work in progress, and we are, in the meantime, trying to connect parents and trustees and teachers to resources that exist that can support them. We want to empower parents and trustees to speak up because, again, it goes back to confidence. People, most normal people in the middle of this debate, right? You got a lot of people on the very far left and a lot of people on the very far right. Most people are moderate in the middle. You know, you might be a little left or a little right, but nobody believes that what is going on is really helping our children or our future. And so we really need to bring them together in a way that they can productively have civil discourse around this issue. And it turns out that that's a lot harder than everybody thought. But we're starting to see some progress. The more parents start to exercise their courage muscle, the more do. And these parents at public schools who are speaking up at school board meetings are the key to this. And they are really leading by example. And we all need to do the same.
Yeah, and I love the focus on the elite schools because you're right. I mean, they are sort of the cultural leaders, and I mean, and we've seen now enough stories. I mean, we've seen them in Chicagoland with Catholic schools as well as, you know, the $50,000 a year private schools. There are high-profile cases in New York, like Paul Rossi at Grace Church, and that's a great place to start with the accrediting agencies that fly below the radar. People like lose track of that in terms of importance, and we've seen that play out in the pandemic too. Which is, you know, if you don't comply with the state mandates, we're going to take your accreditation away from you. We're going to take sports away from you, and so on and so forth. I think parents are now starting to see all of these various agencies that exercise, frankly, more control over their schools, most of those schools at present, than they do. And they're starting to fight to rebalance that distribution of power and control.
That's exactly right. Balance is the key, right? I mean, in private schools, there was a time when parents did have too much control, right? You know stories about the wealthy family. You give a building, your kid does whatever they want to do. That's not the right model, but the pendulum has swung so far to the other side that parents literally have no rights. And in fact, in private schools, enrollment contracts are so one-sided that you could essentially get kicked out of school for saying the wrong word. It's completely at the discretion of the head of school. So to your point, we just need to restore some balance. We need to restore the partnership that used to be what education was about. Parents would work with teachers and administrators to do what was best for the children. And somewhere along the way, we've lost that focus. And I think we're all just trying to get that back because most teachers don't think this is the right answer either. And yet they're caught in the middle because their union's telling them what they're supposed to do, or their head of school or their administrators, and they don't necessarily feel comfortable speaking up. You know, Paul Rossi was amazing and incredibly brave, but most people can't. They'll lose their job. So again, parents need to help support the teachers and the administrators who do want to do the right thing, but don't know that there is a support system for them.
part of that support system, ParentsUnite.org, ParentsUnite.org. She is Ashley Jacobs, the Executive Director of Parents Unite. Ashley, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for focusing on this important issue.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Fruits and vegetables are integral to any healthy diet. But why